Tonight on Reporting Scotland. Could Liam have been saved? We speak to a neighbour who reported concerns about the murdered toddler.
I can't get the vision out of my head. It's affecting my sleep and everything. The whole community's completely knocked by this, you know. But what's the worst part is that a lot of people were speaking up and obviously we weren't taken seriously enough.
We'll be asking if the government's controversial named person scheme could have helped Liam. Also on the programme. An ultimatum to Scottish football. The Justice Secretary says disorder and violence must be tackled or the government will act. The day the inspectors arrived at a hospital and ended up stepping in to help. After a tough start, Andy Murray beats Richard Gasquet to reach the semi-finals of the French Open.
Calder banged it home.
And he captained Rangers and Scotland and even scored the winner against England. Now Eric Kaldau's using his footballing memories to fight dementia. Good evening. A neighbour of the murdered toddler Liam Fee has told how she alerted social services about what she described as her gut-wrenching feeling that something was badly wrong with the child. As the 2-year-old's mother and her partner await sentence for killing Liam and abusing 2 other boys, Tricia Smith has told Reporting Scotland how she phoned Fife Council to alert them, but felt she and others weren't taken seriously. Maura Kinneborough reports.
Tricia Smith knew Liam. Her son's the same age. They went to the same childminder. What she saw haunts her to this day.
It was awful. I didn't know if he was actually drugged or dead. I never had, well, I thought I'd had gut feeling before in the past, but this gut feeling was proper.
She was one of several women who raised the alarm.
I can't get the vision out of my head. It's affecting my sleep and everything. The whole community's completely knocked by this, you know. But what's the worst part is that a lot of people were speaking up and obviously we weren't taken seriously enough.
Ribbons reflect great sadness across this part of Fife.
A premature death of a very young child is a very difficult set of circumstances where people are very much at a loss. And so, we come back to the compassion that people need to share. People are looking for hope and assurance, and if we, through the church, can be helping to share that, then that is what we're here for, to bring that comfort.
Locals say they know and respect many social workers, but in this case their concerns were not responded to well enough. They argue more staff and resources are needed, better training and lighter caseloads.
Liam's mother Rachel and her partner Naomi Fee murdered him, but people here say the government and authorities could have done more.
Why hasn't the lessons been learned before now? Liam could have still been alive.
Maura Kinneborough, Reporting Scotland, Fife.
Well, meanwhile, the First Minister has defended the controversial named person legislation amid criticism that a pilot scheme running in Fife was ineffective in preventing the abuse suffered by Liam Fee. The child protection measure is due to come into effect across the country later this year. Here's our social affairs correspondent, Rival Alderson.
Michael Kula, Brandon Muir, Carla Nicole Bone, Caleb Ness and Danielle Reid. Now add Liam Fee to that tragic roll call of children killed by those who should have protected them. A significant case review has already been ordered to find out how Liam Fee was failed in his short life. But could he have been saved by the government's controversial policy of providing a named person to look after the welfare of every child in Scotland?
It's unfortunately the case that no system anywhere in the world will absolutely guarantee that nothing horrific happens to a child, but this is all about trying to make sure that we reduce the possibilities of children being missed by the authorities, of abuse of children going unnoticed.
But opponents of the system say it wouldn't have saved Liam or any of the other tragic children.
These children are always known. There's a strong argument, I think, can be made that if you had the named person legislation in place and all the energy and money being put into that, you're actually taking attention away from the small number of children that actually need extra attention, like the cases you're talking about.
Danielle Reid, murdered in Inverness. Danielle's mother helped her daughter's killer dump her body in the Caledonian Canal. It prompted changes in Highland Council's child protection policies, similar to the named person scheme.
Because we've been able to get early support to families, more families are getting early intervention. That means that the needs of less children are escalating. That means in Highland there are fewer children at risk of harm. That means that social workers' caseloads have reduced, and social workers are actually now working with the children they really should be working with.
The named person scheme comes into effect in August, the month Liam Fee would have been 5 and starting school. Revel Alderson reporting Scotland.
MSPs have voted in favour of a complete ban on fracking after SNP members at Holyrood abstained. Ministers say they'll take account of the vote but insist it's right to continue with a full scientific appraisal of the controversial procedure. Well, our political editor Brian Taylor is at Holyrood. And Brian, can this be described as a defeat for the government?
Maybe, Jackie, a tactical retreat. Let's face the situation here at Holyrood. The SNP are in a minority. Tonight's vote confirmed that once again, but they could have headed off this demand for an instant ban on fracking. They could have done that, but to do that we'd had to have voted with the Conservatives, and they chose not to do so. They chose to abstain. Instead, that allowed Labour and Green amendments demanding a ban on fracking to carry by very small majorities, while the SNP declined to participate in the vote. Well, what does it mean? Well, it means that they will still continue as ministers to take the scientific evidence, perhaps a decision in early spring next year. So is it entirely irrelevant? By no means. By no means. First of all, Parliament has expressed an opinion. That then goes into the consultation. The second thing is that tonight's vote measurably increases the pressure upon the SNP, pressure that was already strong to go for a complete ban on fracking. If you ask me, do I think there will be a complete ban? The answer is yes.
Brian, thank you. The Justice Secretary has delivered an ultimatum to Scottish football, saying disorder and violence must be tackled or the government will act. Michael Matheson is suggesting that a form of strict liability could be adopted where a club is punished for the bad behaviour of its fans. Here's our senior football reporter, Chris McLaughlin.
In comes the corner! The dying minutes of this year's Scottish Cup final. It's the goal that secures Hibs the trophy for the first time in 114 years. The mayhem that follows kickstarts 3 separate investigations. Outcomes to follow, but for now, those who run Scottish football are being told to sort it out or else.
I think the time has now arrived where we need to start seeing action. So in the discussions we'll be having with them, it will be to assess how serious are they about taking action. And as I also set out today, if Scottish football is not prepared to take action, then we as a government will have to then look at what other options are available to us in order to try and address these types of issues.
The other issues he's referring to were raised during today's talks: sectarian singing, the use of smoke bombs and flares, and in general, fans getting onto the pitch. Holyrood now wants Scottish football to adopt something known as strict liability. That would mean clubs ultimately giving up the power to police themselves.
We are a members' organisation. The members will decide what happens next.
But the members have been asked previously and have rejected it.
They have, absolutely.
So
and ultimately the members will decide. If they don't believe they can accept it, then that may well be their position. That's indeed if a resolution gets put forward. If that doesn't happen, the government have made it clear what their own feelings are.
The SFA described the scenes witnessed here last month as embarrassing, but they also feel extremely uneasy about this latest government intervention. The solution? Well, for clubs who ultimately run the game to adopt stricter rules. That's something they have always resisted in the past. The question is, will what happened here recently and this latest political pressure be enough to change minds? Chris McLaughlin, reporting Scotland.
Stay with us. Still to come in tonight's programme, we explore how the EU referendum vote could raise new questions about Scottish independence.
And in sport, Murray makes the semis. We report from the French Open in Paris. And in Like Flynn, could Charlie Flynn make Britain's Olympic boxing team after a rule change?
Elderly care wards in Edinburgh were so short-staffed that visiting inspectors had to intervene to help patients whose buzzers weren't being answered. Well, the inspectors were visiting 4 NHS hospitals earlier this year to carry out a review of the quality of care. NHS Lothian says the issues have been addressed. Well, our health correspondent Eleanor Bradford joins me. So can you tell us more about the situations the inspectors found themselves in?
Well, these inspectors were from the care watchdog Healthcare Improvement Scotland, and they were visiting basically all of Edinburgh's elderly care hospitals. But as you said, when they arrived, they had to intervene to help two patients who'd rung their buzzers and no one had come. And they described during their visits in 3 wards, they said that buzzers were ringing constantly, it was noisy, there were long periods before staff were able to respond to those buzzers. They raised other concerns as well about pain management, about food and nutrition and gaps in patients' notes, but they said a running theme under all this was understaffing. Now, these inspectors were called in the first place because of a complaint by a family who'd had a very bad experience in one of these elderly care hospitals, and that family told us today that the inspectors' report mirrored their own experiences.
There are so many echoes of what happened to Dad, the drinks being out of reach, the buzzers ringing, the fact that the inspectors had to intervene on a number of occasions. That was quite heartbreaking to hear. That's the thing I think that stays with my brothers and I, is just the sound of that, the constant cacophony of buzzers and shouting and screaming and distress, the noise of distress.
Now, Lothian NHS says the issues have been addressed.
Well, these inspections were carried out as recently as this year, but NHS Lothian does say that they've invested £1 million in staffing, that they have urgently addressed the issues outlined in this report. They also point out that the report did find areas of good performance in all the hospitals. But just last year, the Royal College of Nursing pointed out that this system of inspections we have in Scotland hasn't really led to improvements, they say. They say that the same problems are being found again and again. And now there's a campaign by a group of people who want the inspection system strengthened, so that they say that prosecutions could be brought against managers who don't have services which are up to scratch. But the Scottish Government has always rejected that and have always said that the inspection system we have in Scotland is strong enough.
Eleanor, thank you. The US presidential candidate Donald Trump has announced he plans to attend the official opening of his refurbished golf course at Turnberry later this month. £200 million has been spent on the course and hotel in Ayrshire, with the official opening on June the 24th, the day after the EU referendum. There have been calls for Mr Trump to be banned from entering Britain over controversial comments he's made on the campaign trail. A woman has died after falling around 20 metres off Arthur's Seat in Edinburgh. Emergency services were called in this afternoon to try to rescue the woman, but she died at the scene. An investigation is underway and police have urged motorists and members of the public to avoid the area. And now look at other stories from across the country. 7 members of a gang who planned to rob an upmarket jewellers at a hotel in St Andrews have been jailed for a total of 47 years. Police swooped on the gang ahead of the attempted raid at the Mappin and Webb shop at the Old Course Hotel in March 2015. They were sentenced at the High Court in Paisley. An agreement in principle has been reached to end a long-running equal pay dispute between North Lanarkshire Council and about 200 female staff. The GMB union said women care workers, cleaners and janitors had been subject to pay discrimination. The council described the offer as a positive step in ending the dispute. 2 Edinburgh schools closed over safety fears will not reopen later this month as planned. Further work is needed on Royal High and Drummond Community High Schools. Both were expected to reopen in 3 weeks' time. Pupils will now be able to return after the summer break. Argyll received a spending boost of almost £2.8 million when Oban hosted last year's Royal National Mod. A new independent study also indicates that most of those surveyed would return to the town. A 3.5-metre model of the National Museum of Scotland, built from Lego, has been unveiled to mark the 150th anniversary of the building. It's made from 90,000 bricks and took 350 hours to build. It'll be on display at the museum until the end of the year. Now, with just over 3 weeks to the EU referendum, one of the key questions in the debate has been what happens if Scots vote to stay in and the rest of the UK votes to leave? Would a vote to leave the EU change the arguments for and against Scottish independence? Well, Alan Little has been finding out what people across the country think.
570. It's no secret that Scotland's fishing industry has long blamed EU membership for its decline. Peterhead may still be the biggest fish market in Europe, but it's a fraction of what it was before the UK had to share its seas with the rest of Europe.
As the years went by, Brussels seemed to have more and more control. And every time they used to come back from quota negotiations, more and more restrictions was coming in. It was like a noose that was tightened around our neck all the time.
No secret either that much of Scottish industry wants to stay inside a single market of 500 million people. About a third of Scotland's whisky exports go to the EU. But as always, the in-out debate presents itself differently in Scotland. For there's a strong possibility that Scotland will vote to remain, while the UK as a whole will vote to leave. What then?
We were told if we voted yes, we would imperil our European Union membership. Now, to find ourselves having voted no, to face the prospect of being taken out, I just think many people would be deeply upset about that because they didn't want to leave the European Union, but also angry that we had, in effect, been misled in that way during the referendum.
Would support for independence rise if Scotland voted to stay in the EU but ended up leaving anyway? Is there a legitimacy question?
There's no question of democratic legitimacy at all. I mean, first of all, I think it's really important that Scots approach June 23rd with one question in their mind, which is, should we continue to be members of the EU? That's the only question that's being asked. It's not about Scottish independence.
How would a vote to leave the EU change the arguments for and against independence? Could the SNP still argue for a shared currency if crossing this bridge at Coldstream also meant entering the EU? Would there be customs barriers here, passport controls, immigration checks?
One of the big issues in the Scottish independence referendum was the issue of the currency. That was difficult enough then. The idea of trying to sell the message of Scottish independence on the currency issue in the context of Brexit would be very, very difficult. What currency would an independent Scotland use? Would it be moving towards the euro? I don't think the SNP would want to sell that to the electorate.
Would a vote to leave the European Union propel Scotland further down the road to independence? Well, it certainly changes the independence proposition in ways we haven't even begun to consider yet. And it would confront Scotland with a new national question. Which union do you want to be part of? The British one or the European one? And that's an argument we haven't even started to have yet.
Alan Little there, and you can see more on that story tonight in Scotland, The Edge of Europe at 7:30 on BBC One Scotland. Now, some news just coming into us. In the past few minutes, investigators have issued an urgent safety recommendation concerning helicopter gearboxes in the wake of last month's crash off Norway, which killed 13 people. Tests on wreckage have highlighted metal fatigue, and officials believe current methods to detect a failure in advance are not effective. Time for sport now, and a good day at the office for Andy Murray.
Certainly was, Jackie, yes. Good evening. Andy Murray is through to the semi-finals of the French Open tennis. The world number 2 beating France's Richard Gasquet in the quarter-finals today. Surviving a bit of a scare, though, on the way. To get to the final, Murray will have to beat the defending champion Stan Wawrinka. More from Kerdine Idsan in Paris.
The long-awaited walk-on after 2 brief days of rain. No sign of rustiness early on as Murray consolidated a break of serve. His shot-making was so good that he literally blew his French opponent off his feet.
That might be awkward.
But from down on his derriere, Gasquet reeled off 5 games in a row as the Murray magic vanished. First set the Frenchman in front of his adoring home crowd. Curiously, the second set followed almost exactly the same pattern, with both players at times at the top of their games.
That's just outrageous racket skills.
Once again, Murray moved 5-2 ahead, but once again Gasquet battled back, forcing the Scot to a tie-break. He played it superbly to level the match at 1-all. The momentum had swung significantly towards the world number 2, so much so that he sailed through the third set 6-love. Gasquet had blown a gasket. Murray, meanwhile, was in the mood, making sure of a semi-final spot with a fine 4-set win. Well, Andy Murray has never been to the final of the French Open, but could that be about to change? Standing in the way of Sunday's showpiece is the defending champion Stanislas Wawrinka, with whom Andy Murray goes head-to-head in the semis on Friday.
The Scottish Cup winners Hibernian are looking for a new team boss. That's because Alan Stubbs has been appointed manager of the English Championship club Rotherham United. Stubbs is taking his assistant John Doolan with him. They've both signed 3-year deals with the South Yorkshire side. Now, Lee Griffiths says he'll prove himself again if that's what's required to be part of new manager Brendan Rodgers' plans at Celtic. The striker scored 40 goals last season and has picked up his 3rd Player of the Year award of the season, this time from the SPFL sponsors.
Every manager's got, different opinions and what different things he wants to try, and the style of philosophy he wants to play football. And I'm just hoping that I fit into that. It took me a long time under Ronnie to force my way into the squad. Hopefully it doesn't take this long with the new gaffer, but if it does, I'll do the exact same. I'll bide my time, and when my chance comes, I'll take it with both hands.
The Commonwealth Games gold medal winning boxer Charlie Flynn's interested in fighting for Team GB at Rio 2016. According to his manager, Flynn turned professional after the Glasgow Games in 2014, but a rule change means pros can now compete at the Olympics. With only 2 spaces left in the GB team, Flynn would have to step up in weight and hope amateur squad members fail to qualify. And that's tonight's Sport Jacket.
Thank you very much. Well, there is a sporting theme to tonight's last story, and if you're caring for a loved one with dementia, then it might also strike a chord. 50 years ago, Eric Caldow was at the height of his fame as a captain of Rangers and Scotland. Now he has Alzheimer's disease, and although his memory isn't good, he's found happiness in reliving some of his greatest footballing triumphs. As part of Scottish Dementia Awareness Week, we're looking at new approaches to the condition. Suzanne Allen can tell us more.
Scotland, on the left, took the field against England.
Scotland versus England, Hampden Park, 1962.
Calder banged it home.
Eric Caldow, the Rangers and Scotland star, scores the winning goal.
Enjoy that, Eric. Yes, I will.
Today, Eric is reliving the glory of that triumph at a Football Memories group.
A great moment. Nice to see Hampden so full.
6 years ago, he developed Alzheimer's disease, a form of dementia, and is now in a care home in Ayrshire.
Playing for Rangers, first of all, and naturally after that, Scotland. To be captain of Rangers and captain of Scotland, well, I couldn't get any higher than that.
Eric played 400 games for Rangers and 40 times for Scotland. Now it's watching and reliving those experiences that are helping keep his spark today.
We played against, was it England? No, it wasn't England. It was another game. And I scored to get the penalty the first 3 minutes of the game.
Did you ever get the slightest nerves at all going onto the pitch?
No.
Not?
No.
Right.
I had the ball at my foot.
Eric's daughter says coming to this group really helps.
My dad gets great enjoyment out of it. Obviously it gets him to see himself on screen again and brings back memories, and also when he comes there's a lot of people here that are maybe Rangers fans as well, so my dad really enjoys it. You can just see his face light up, big smile.
Billy McNeil, what was his nickname then?
The group meets for 90 minutes and has a pie and bovril at half time. There are songs, quizzes and videos. The man who runs it believes it helps people with dementia.
I think it's because it gives them a chance to bring back some good memories from the past and actually relive them and actually share the memories with their friends, because it's nothing better than kind of talking about things that happened in the past and, kind of good memories of when you used to go to the football together with your family.
Dementia can take parts of the memory away, but it doesn't mean people living with it can't be happy. They can still twist at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday. Suzanne Allen reporting Scotland, Ayrshire.
Now, after a lovely run of weather, here's some more, hopefully, from Kirsty.
Yes, thank you very much, Jackie. Good evening to you. Sunshine certainly hasn't been in short supply again today across the vast bulk of Scotland. The next couple of days, somewhat cloudier, although blue skies returning for most of us in time for the weekend. So for this evening, it's looking dry for most of us, and there will be some sunshine around to end the day too. I think as we go through the overnight period, cloud will tend to infill once again across northern and eastern areas. And by the end of the night, we'll see some rain working its way into Shetland, perhaps some mist and fog patches around in the east too. For many in the west, we hold on to clear skies here. For some sheltered rural areas, temperatures may fall to around 4 Celsius. For the most part, though, around 7 to 9 degrees. Into tomorrow then, we should begin to see this cloud burning back towards coastal areas once again, leaving clear blue skies for most of us for a time. As we head into the afternoon, though, there will be some infill of cloud, turning the sunshine somewhat hazy. So a closer look tomorrow afternoon, something by way of improvement across Shetland. Some rain, though, across Orkney, perhaps the far north of Sutherland and Caithness tomorrow afternoon, and cloudy skies for much of the Murray Coast and parts of Aberdeenshire. For many eastern coastal areas, though, tomorrow I think we should see something in the way of dry, bright weather with some sunshine too. Perhaps the one exception being the Borders, where we hold on to rather cloudy skies. Some sunshine to come tomorrow afternoon across much of the west into the northwest. Temperatures peaking around 19 Celsius and still feeling pleasantly warm in the sunshine. Towards evening, cloudy conditions across the north and east with some light and patchy rain, otherwise dry with some spells of sunshine. And into Friday, more in the way of cloud across the north and east, and there will be some outbreaks of rain. The far west holding on to the driest, brightest conditions and temperatures peaking around 18 Celsius. For Saturday, though, it looks dry, bright, plenty of sunshine again, and temperatures reaching around 21, if not 22 Celsius. That's the forecast. Jackie.
Thank you, Kirsty. I'll be back with the headlines at 8 and the late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Until then, from all the team, good evening.